Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. The podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are celebrating Pride Month with a book called Stumptown. Now, John, have you ever heard of Stumptown before?
No, I hadn't. We threw up our poll. And this was the winner this month for Pride, and this was definitely one of the few like that. I'm kind of glad it won because it stuck out to me too. Because you've definitely got me more into like crime and drama in comic form as well. So I was like, okay, that's cool. But no, I drink a coffee on occasion called Stumptown, and that's the only thing I've ever heard of.
Right. Yeah, because this takes place in Seattle or something, right? Or Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is by Greg Rucka, the writer, and he's known for writing crime. He actually co-wrote the Gotham Central book that was also on our poll with Ed Brubaker, who's, a crime author that we've done on this podcast before with Reckless. So they're like probably the two most well-known crime writers in comics, like that are like mainstream, I would say. Because Greg Rucka also rebooted The Question with Renee Montoya as The Question. But then they never really did anything with her after that. So he kind of I remember when this book came out, because it was in 2009. I was working at the comic book store, and I remember reading the first issue and just being like, yeah, it's fine. But at the time, I wasn't as much into crime comics, so now I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. So I'm like, I gotta go buy all these trades now, because I just thought it was like, yeah, it's fine. But but yeah, I was really into this as we were reading it. So yeah, but like I said, this is a crime comic, and it's an Oni Press book, so that's kind of like a smaller publisher. The art is by Matthew Southworth. What'd you think of the art in this, John?
I liked it. It's kind of like that dark, seedy, rough feel to it. So it definitely feels crime. Like even though it's like you said, like it's kind of like Seattle based. When it's still
actually, it's not Seattle based. I'm looking at it right now. It's Portland, Oregon. I'm stupid. I knew that, but I said Seattle. I don't know.
No, I did too from reading. I feel silly.
Yeah,
but it still has that like kind of griminess to it. Like she definitely was going to a lot of seedy places. And I will say, I won't spoil it to it, but the last issue of this first trade was my favorite for the art, specifically when it went to like nighttime. I really love the way that they did the shadows and the coloring on them.
To me, the nighttime stuff in this book was really what shined.
Yes.
And some of the like daytime stuff I didn't really care for. It was interesting. It wasn't the art, it was actually the colors that like threw me sometimes. But like the line art was always consistent, but it was the colors. I don't know if sometimes they used a different colorist or if there was another person helping, or if just they chose a certain look for the daytime colors and it just didn't work for me. But the nighttime stuff, or like the evening stuff, all the shadows and stuff, I really like that. But yeah, we should get into the book, because this book starts off with a bang, and I really love this first issue. I think it's a very strong first issue as far as writing goes, because we start off with two guys pulling up to a bridge underpass, and there's a river, and they get in the trunk. We find a woman is locked in there. She's got a cell phone, but she drops it. And I love this because it's a BlackBerry. I was like, wow, this is definitely set in 2009. So, yeah. And then like, they don't even mess around. The guys just pull her out and then they shoot her as she's like, come on guys, are we seriously going to do this? And then they just shoot her twice. And like, that's how it starts. I'm like, wow, that was a very intense, opening. It felt a lot like a TV show or something,
Very much so. Yeah, it was like that, and then like roll credits of like the intro or whatever.
Right, yeah. And then it starts off with 27 hours earlier. And so we get to know what happened to her, how she got in this predicament. we find out, or we should say that they don't say the main character's name for a while, but her name is Dex, and she's a private detective. And so she is, known around town as a private detective, but she's not the best with money, because when we see her 27 hours earlier, she is at the Whispering Winds Casino, which is on an Indian reservation or Native American reservation, and she's gambling a whole bunch and losing a whole bunch.
A whole bunch.
So she's really bad at it. And I like this. I know nothing about like craps, but she's playing craps. And I'm like, what is a hard 8 or whatever? Like, like I don't know what some of these terms are. Like 8 the hard way or like 10 in the field. I don't know what that stuff means. So I'm like, I guess maybe she's bad or good. I don't know. And then when like they do the roll and like everybody's like, this happened. I'm like, I don't know what happened. Like, so it's just my lack of gambling knowledge, I guess. But
that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I guess. So she loses a bunch of money, and then someone from the casino comes up to her and says, we need to talk to you. And she gets pulled into the office of the casino owner, right? Like it's this older woman.
I think she's the owner or at least
like
the
manager or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, and this just reminded me of like Casino, the movie or whatever, like the pit boss. You get called back and then you get drugged into a cornfield and shot in the back of the head or something. But this is actually not that. She has been called here not just because she owes $17,616 to this casino. And like the funny thing is like Dex didn't know that. She's like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was that much. But she's not very good with money, like we said. So, but it's actually because the daughter of Sue Lin, this casino manager, is missing, and she wants Dex to find her for like no fee, right? Like obviously, whatever she does for the private investigations will just come out of what she owes the casino. So, yeah, and I should also say the reason why this was on the poll is because Dex is bisexual, and like they drop hints in this book fairly often for that. But it was I don't know. As a Pride book, what do you think as this for like, if you wanted a book for representation? There are books that are a lot more like forward with that topic. Some of them were on our poll, and then there's others that are just like, yeah, she's gay, but she's a private detective, and it comes into the story sometimes, but it doesn't really, it's not the crux of the story. It's not the center focus of the story. What do you think of that?
I thought it was good because I think that, all the spectrum of representation is good to have. And so you have one where like, that's part of her life, but it's not like her whole personality. And like, she is like focused on her job and she doesn't really like she's in a big hole and she's got a lot of things going against her as we'll see.
She can't focus on getting laid all the time.
Yeah, like there is one moment where she kind of like is like maybe, and then there was someone who, like says a line and it's kind of like shuts down for like most of the rest of the comic, and it's good. So
there's a couple lines in this where like she's talking to someone, and that's how you know she's bisexual, because one's a guy, one's a girl, and you're like, oh okay, like I get it now. But like there's a couple instances where that comes up, but it's not like I said, it's not the crux of the story. So yeah, like she gets hired by Sue Lin to find her daughter, and she doesn't have any leads or anything. All she knows is like, oh, your daughter's missing. So she starts where you would normally start, where I guess Sue Lin, what's the daughter's name? I don't remember off the top. Charlotte. So where Charlotte lived, I guess. So it's weird because we go forward in back time. So like we're at 27 hours earlier. Now we're at 23 hours earlier. And the way it said that, sometimes I was like, wait, are we 23 hours earlier from where we just were? Or no, we're moving forward in the past, which is interesting. I can see how that might be confusing to some people, but I figured it out, obviously. But she goes to check on like the house. Well, I guess she goes to her house first to like check on her brother. He is a special needs brother. So like he needs her, he can work and stuff, but he needs her to like kind of keep him on focus and like help him get to work and whatnot. but yeah, it's kind of nice to see her. I guess she takes care of her brother. There's no parents that they show in this, at least, so I don't know where they come into play. I don't know if that's going to be brought up in later comics, like in later series of this, but
yeah, it just seems like in this first arc, it's like she's kind of balancing PI life, taking care of her brother, and then she even gets help once or twice to like have someone stay with him if she has to like go away.
Yeah. Yeah, and so because she's, obviously works late nights and stuff, sometimes she does leave him in the house to play video games and stuff alone. But she does have someone come every now and then to like keep an eye on him, and like hang out with him and stuff. So I thought that was like it kind of like made her, it humanized her, right? It gave her like a different aspect to her character because obviously she cares about her brother, and also created more tension, right? Like in the violent scenes, you're like, oh, if she dies, what's going to happen to him? Like that is just bad all around if she gets hurt or whatever, right? So
yeah, and that is one thing. Almost every character that she talks to in reference to like the main crux of the story knows, like she's like well enough known around. They know of her and her brother because they'll always be like, "How's Ansel?" And she's like,
everybody's like,
every
how's
single
Ansel?
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I just thought that it's definitely like it's a big part of her life. So.
Yeah, even to a detriment because at the end that comes up, and I'll point it out when we get to there. But so she leaves her brother. I guess she gets some sleep that night, and then wakes up early in the morning, goes to check on Charlotte's house because she's like, well, where else would she be? Or like not where else would she be? Where else would clues be? So she goes there and she goes through the house and she sees everything's here except the essentials, right? Like there's some shampoo missing and soap. There's like a charger for a phone. There's a bag and a couple clothes, but not all of the clothes. So it's very obvious that that Charlotte left of her own accord, or at least left quickly, but didn't want people to know that she was there. And also she left her car there in the parking lot too, which was like, I guess it's a Mini Cooper, right? They say it, but they don't ever show it. I don't think.
No, yeah, but I assume the way with the title. So
yeah, so it's like she obviously wanted to get missing, right? Like she packed what she needed and then didn't take anything she didn't, or anything that might give her away, and then left. So that's kind of where she's at right now. Dex is thinking, okay, well, she left on her own accord, but I gotta figure out how to find that. Like it's probably a lot harder to find someone if they don't want to be found, right? Like if someone took you, then there's clues, right? There's more clues. But if no one's taken you and you've left on your own accord, there's a lot more stuff that you have to figure out on your own. So this is the first time that we see the guys that were at the very beginning that shot her, and now this is the first time they meet. So she leaves the house of Charlotte and she goes down to the parking lot, and these two guys are waiting, and they warn her, and they even like vandalize her car because she has a Mustang, right?
Yeah, it's a Mustang with a convertible top.
Yeah, so the one of the guys, their names are Dill and Whale, and I think it's Whale takes his switchblade and stabs it through the convertible canvas roof and slashes it. And of course, she's all pissed about that. And also, she doesn't have any money. We already know that she's pretty poor because we know that she can't pay back this debt. And when Sue Lin was talking about, like, oh, I know you can't pay back this debt because I looked into your bank accounts and shit. So, like, we know how much money she has, or doesn't have, I should say, in the bank because of what the casino found about her or knows about her. So she gets threatened by these two guys. They tell her basically, like, stay out of it. And they go pretty full force. They punch her, and then and then she gets taken to a house, right?
Yeah, but that was the thing I liked here too. Is like she gets beat up and then kind of left, and then like you stay here on your nose, stay out of this business. And then while she's like gathering herself from getting the crap kicked out of her, two different men show up and they're like
in a different car.
Yeah, you're coming with us. And it was like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah. So then she gets driven to some like palatial estate in Oregon that's overlooking the water and stuff. And it turns out it is the leader of, they say he's like the leader of MS-13, which is a Hispanic gang. So it's a Salvadorian guy, and his name's Hector Marenco, and he is supposed to be in charge of MS-13, but he denies it heartily. He's like, that's a lie, and I of course am a legitimate businessman. But she knows who he is and what his reputation is, so she doesn't really mess around with him. And while she's there, he says, I want you to find this girl, Charlotte, as well. But before you tell the grandma about her, is that the grandma or the mom?
I think we were saying daughter, but she's the grandma.
Granddaughter.
She does say
you're right.
she loves all her grandchildren.
That's right. Yeah.
Even the ones that like run away or
that fuck up.
Do stupid
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So Sue Lin is the grandmother of Charlotte. So this guy, Hector, he's like, yeah, I want to hire you, but and like I'll pay you double what she's paying you in cash, and all you got to do is like call me before you call her when you find her. So like you still do your job, but you just let me know beforehand. Which of course she's like, no, fuck that, I'm not going to do that. And then while she's in this house telling the guy no, she runs into Hector's daughter. What is her name again? I don't remember her name.
Isabel.
So apparently she's bad news, but this is the first time we see a little bit of flirting or something. Isabel says like, she looks at Dex and says, "Oh, you're too old to be one of my brothers." And she's like, "Oh, okay." And then she gets really close to Dex and says, "I like older women though." So there's like a little bit of hint there. And you can see in the next panel that Dex doesn't have a problem with that. Like she even says like, "Oh, she's perky. I can dig that." Like, she likes being flirted with by a lady. So that's like the first hint we get of it, kind of, that she's bisexual. But
then that's one of the ones. Then the one of the henchmen's like, "Now you don't want any of that. You're already in enough trouble."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that made me think that it's just like she's bad news, right? Like,
yeah.
Not Dex, but the daughter Isabel is bad news. And I was always like, oh, I wonder what that is. And later on we find out, of course. But in this first issue, we don't really get anything about her, so she's more of a mystery in this one. And then we cut to Dex back at home. She's with her brother hanging out. And then she gets a call, and it's Charlotte on the line. And she's like, why are you looking for me? Are you working for him? He wants to find me. Why are you working for him? But Dex is like, no, I'm working for your grandma. I did not take his deal. But Charlotte doesn't believe her. But Dex is like, okay, if you don't believe me, that's fine. But like, look, let's meet at a bar. We'll talk it out. I promise I'm not going to do anything. So she says, meet me at this certain bar at 10 o'clock or whatever. And then Dex goes to the bar and waits there. No one shows up. So Charlotte didn't show up because she didn't trust her. And then when Dex is leaving, that's when the two guys, Whale and Dill, show up, and they're just waiting outside because they've probably been following her. And this is like right before what happened at the beginning where she gets shot. So they take her with a gun, throw her in the trunk, and then we know that she gets shot twice and thrown into the water. And this is weird. Like, she gets shot, and then she before she left, she had mentioned to her brother, "Hey, where's my vest?" And I thought she was talking about like a vest, like a fancy vest, like clothes. But she was actually talking about her.
Where's my going out vest?
Exactly. That's because she's going to the bar or something. I don't know. And it was actually her bulletproof vest. So luckily, this was funny to me. Like, it's like in Dumb and Dumber where Harry's like, I had a bulletproof vest. And he's like, well, what if he shot you in the face? It's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's like, this just covers her like midsection. It's not even a vest. It's more like a belly band or something that she's wearing. That's like, or either that or they just kind of drew it weird under her shirt. I don't know. But she gets shot right in the abdomen, so it does stop the bullets. But then randomly police show up and arrest her. And it's like, really? Like, what? Why do they have her? She's in the water. Yeah, but she doesn't have a gun, obviously. And she's like coming out of the water like she fell in or someone threw her in there.
That's not for cops to decide.
Right, I guess. Sure.
They heard gunshots. They see people. You're coming with me.
Sure. Just not the people that did the shooting. So
Exactly.
yeah, so then they arrest her and they take her in, and we see the name of this book. The name of this arc is actually called "The Case of the Girl Who Took Her Shampoo But Left Her Mini in Part 1." But left her Mini Part 1. So
yeah.
it's a long name.
That's how we know it's a Mini Cooper.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. That's the only reason we know. Like a couple times later, they do mention Mini, but they don't ever say Mini Cooper. Probably, I wonder if that was like a copyright thing or something, or like a. I don't think you have to pay companies like like in movies you have to pay for like a Coke placement or something,
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think you can mention cars. I think that's fine.
Yeah, well, they don't even mention the Mustang like outright. They just say, "Oh," like people look at it and she says, "Oh, it's a '64," and then people are like, "Oh, it's shitty," but like you only know it if you know the car. So like, I don't know why they don't mention any of the car names, but whatever, not a big deal. But she gets arrested, and that's the end of the first issue. And like I said, this was a really strong first issue. What do you think of the first issue, John?
Yeah, no, like you said, it was really strong. Like you had like a complete circle in just that first issue, and it was really cool. It was very well done. I liked it.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard because you know the end before it starts, right? Or like as it starts. So you have to, hopefully your story is compelling enough that you keep interested by the time you see the end, So because you already know it's happening, so you're just kind of waiting to see the events that cause that to happen. So hopefully they're compelling, right? That's like the hard part as a writer, right? So
yeah.
So yeah, issue 2 starts, and we see the police, I guess, finally started listening to her once they saw that she has a PI badge, and they take her to a hospital, and she's getting bandaged up by a doctor. And this is the first time we see her flirt with a guy. She's flirting with the doctor, saying like, "You can fill me up if you want," kind of thing, like, and joking around a bit with him because she's in her bra as he like bandages her midsection. And she's like, "Oh, I wore like this. It just so happened I'm wearing my second best bra." So, yeah, she's really laying it on thick for this doctor. I don't know if it's because he's the doctor, but they made it seem like that. And then she's actually there, or while she's there, another cop who's like a female cop. I think it's a female cop, right? Or no, am I wrong?
Yeah, the way I took this is because she calls her for information later too. I think that they've I guess known each other. Her name's Tracy,
right?
And yeah, I guess they're friends, or maybe more at one point.
Yeah, maybe
there's some tension between them.
Yeah,
sure.
It seemed like so. There's tension between them, and then also her with other police, which we see later. And so yeah, there's tension, but she will help her out. Like they're friendly enough that that Tracy will help Dex out. So, she, is kind of asking her for information about Charlotte, looking up this. She actually, now Tracy's here to, get the side of the story of who shot you, right? Because obviously you got shot, so that's attempted murder. One thing I thought was interesting is the police kept saying, assault. And it's like, and Dex was like, "No, it was an attempted murder. They literally shot me and left me for dead."
Shot me.
Yeah. And they're like, "Yeah, the assault." It's like, it's not an assault. I mean, it's a type of assault, but in the law, you would think that would be called, attempted murder. So, yeah. So anyway, she's been at the hospital all night. As she's talking to Tracy, she's like, "Oh shit, I didn't realize what the time was. I got to go get my brother ready for work." So she goes home. She starts getting her brother ready for work. And this is where we see he's got like, I don't know if he's he's not a caretaker because he's not there all the time, but it seems like maybe he's like a mentor or something. Like he's with a program that maybe helps disabled people out or something. So he shows up, and she also flirts with him. Although this is more of like he's in love with her and she knows it, and he's kind of like a simp for her kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely came off as like, well, yeah, I'll help your brother whatever you need, And,
yeah, and then she like kisses him on the cheek.
You're the best friend anybody could have,
Yeah, yeah. Well, she never says that though. That's more clear than what she does. She says like, "You're a prince amongst men," and then like kisses him on the cheek, right? So like that just makes it sound like he's smitten with her, and she knows it. I think because she actually asked him like, "Oh, do you mind staying with him like all night and shit? Because like I got stuff to do." So she does kind of abuse that relationship, I think, for her favor, I would assume. But then after she drops, or after his name is Gray. After that, helper helps Ansel go to work. Then Dex goes to the police station because she needs to look at mug shots to see if she can find the guys that shot her. So as she's looking through the mug shots, I think they do ID Dill. But they never find Whale in the mug shots. But as they're talking, all of a sudden, like the chief of police guy comes in and is like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And we can see that they are fighting, and there's some tension between them because apparently, like through their bickering, we find out that she somehow led to the chief's marriage breaking up. So we can assume that Dex slept with his wife or cheated with his wife, and that's what it seems like to me. Did you get anything else from that?
No, that's kind of what I pictured too. Is like, what is this? Doing here? This person, I can't believe you.
Yeah, I hate this person.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a pretty, like they don't really do, there's nothing else with that in this, but it's just to like lay down, not only that she's bisexual, but that there's like, she's not liked in the police community, which is probably why the police, even though they didn't know she was a private eye, they don't necessarily treat her awesome, except Tracy, who's still like on edge with her. So, yeah, that I thought that was an interesting interaction in this book. So then she goes home, Dex goes home, and when she gets there, Isabel is there. So Hector's daughter, the one she met at his house that said like, "Oh, I like older women," is there. Now, when they meet, Isabel says like, "Oh, that was just like a fake thing I was saying in order to like fuck with my guard, because I guess the guard annoys her or something." And she said it loud enough so he could hear. So she's like, "I'm not really into women." But later on, we find out that's not really true. It seems she actually is into women. And I don't know. Okay. Well, we'll get into it when we'll talk about some of the like the ins and outs of the twists in this book later on when they reveal themselves. But there were some interesting twists that I was going to ask you about, like if you picked up what I picked up with Charlotte and her. Later on. So okay, when we get there, we'll talk about it. But so basically, Isabel is, she's a rich girl who thinks she's better than everybody, kind of thing. That's like the attitude she puts off. And also like her dad is like head of a super crazy gang. So no one can touch her, right? Anybody who tries to like fuck with her is dead. So she wants to know why is Dex looking for Charlotte? She thinks that for sure Dex is working for her dad, and she doesn't want any of that happening. Now, this is the only part I was kind of like, so obviously Isabel, like this is like the hint that Isabel knows that where Charlotte is, right? Like, cause she comes to the house and asks like, "Why are you looking for her?" So it's very obvious, like, oh, she's with you then. So, so like if Isabel hadn't done this, would the comic have happened? Like, like would the rest of the story have happened? I don't know. But it really, this was like one of the cruxes in the story where it's like, oh, if this didn't happen, there's no more story, or at least the story would be very different without this scene. But yeah, we learn a bit about Isabel's brother in this talk back and forth where they're kind of tit for tatting about like each other, like, not making fun of each other, but like they're trying to push and see where the other stands, in this conversation. It's kind of like in Glengarry Glen Ross when like the men are talking and they're like giving little subtle or even not so subtle hints, like push back on each other to try to like see how far they can push the other person. It's like that. But Isabel brings up her brother, who's named Oscar, I mean. And Oscar, that's actually brought up by Dex. And So Dex is like, what about Oscar? And then that kind of stops the conversation because basically Charlotte used to go out with him. They broke up and no one is saying why. Right. And then Isabel's like, I'm tired of talking to you. Boring. So she basically leaves after that. Was there anything else in this conversation that was important that you noticed?
Not really. Just, her brother Oscar, they're definitely like, kind of always at odds. And she definitely, she's one of those things where it's like in the family, like women are not respected.
Right. She even says like, in my culture, women are not going to be the head of a crime family or something. So
yeah. So
so they're like, oh, Carlos is going to be that guy. So because Isabel mentioned Carlos, now Dex has like another lead, right? Possibly. I'm sorry, I said Carlos. Oscar. His name's Oscar. Now, see, yeah, I said Carlos first, and now I'm like, oh, it's going to be in my head. I do that all the time. My bad. So Oscar. So then now she's like, okay. She writes down like some notes that we can read that's like, Oscar, who's that? And like, so we know what she's thinking. And then she looks on Google, this new thing called Google. And that's the one thing I noticed. What do you think of the technology in this, right? Like there were some things I'm like, what is that? Like it's so old.
Yeah, it definitely like it feels a little bit of time. Like you said, the BlackBerry, I noticed right away. I was like, right. Oh wow.
Well, that's probably because we just watched that BlackBerry movie.
Watched that movie.
But yeah, I didn't even know. I didn't know anybody with a BlackBerry in 2009. So, but yeah, I noticed the technology because it does date it, but like not in like a bad way. It's just kind of like, oh, that's what they used back then, huh? Cool. So she literally searches for Oscar Manico and looks for his name in the on the webs, as they say, and she finds out where he lives. She goes to visit him in like his penthouse, and when she walks in, like he does let her in, which I was like, okay, I guess so. And then he's working out
on his Bowflex.
Oh yeah, his Bowflex.
I noticed that right away. I was like, yep, okay, I know that definitely is from the time.
No self-respecting, like Latino gangster is using a Bowflex. That's all I'm saying. Because there's no weight, there's no like there's no like actual thing to show.
These little tension rods.
Yeah, right. So you can't just take a picture of him lifting weights. It's got to be like, look at how many bows I'm flexing. There's nothing to show off there. So, but yeah, he's working out while he's talking to her. She brings up obviously Charlotte, and he's like, oh yeah, we dated. We're not dating anymore. No big deal. But she brings up his sister, and he's like, what the fuck? Why, basically his sister said something about him to Dex, and she says that same thing. What did she say that pissed him off so bad? I can't remember what she says, but she says something that makes him very angry. Is it that like he's not working for his father?
Oh yeah. Because he's like, oh yeah, you're working for my dad, right? She's like, no, I'm not working for your father. I'm working for Charlotte's grandmother.
Yeah. Oh, it's because she says, oh, was Charlotte too old for you? That's why, did you dump her for that? And he's like, what the fuck does that mean? And this is like something you look back on now, and after knowing kind of later on what happens, you're like, oh, I kind of get it, I think. But she's kind of like plays it off like, oh, it was something your sister said to me. So we kind of established that maybe the sister and Charlotte have some kind of relationship, and Oscar is very angry about that. I'm gonna say Carlos. It's a thing. I'm sorry. I said Carlos first. I don't know why that name came to my mind, but now it's that. So my brain is very like, you said it once and that's it forever now. So I'll try to remember Oscar. But so basically, they just kind of talk a little bit more, and then he's like, get the fuck out. Like, I don't know where she is. I don't have anything to do with her disappearance, so get out. So he does that. Or she leaves, and one thing that's funny, like a common reoccurring thing, she always gets parking tickets on her car. So she always parks
really
in
has
the wrong spot.
She's like the worst luck in this for sure. Like she runs into the bad guys every time. She's not, she thinks she's just, trying to do her job. She's getting tickets. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And those tickets add up, man. When I lived in LA, that was like, you forget to move your car on Street Sweeper Day, that's like, $50 ticket. And then, you park somewhere wrong, $50 ticket. And then, you talk on your cell phone while you're driving, $50 ticket. So that shit is expensive. But yeah. Yeah.
You had that happen a lot?
Exactly. All the time. Well, especially the street sweeper, because I would always forget that, I got to move my car on a certain day and not park on this side of the road because the street sweeper comes by. It's very annoying. But anyway, she leaves Oscar's place, but she doesn't leave. She just walks out of the building and she sits in her parked car and waits for him to leave. And then she follows him. And we see him go into like a restaurant and then get in a fight with a guy. And then he goes and he finds his sister, right? That's who he goes to get. Am I wrong about that?
No, I think it's his sister. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we know, like, he goes to talk to the sister and like confront her. There's a big fight. Then the sister leaves, Isabel. And so Isabel goes to a hotel and then Dex follows her there. So then Dex figures out, she talks her way into the room or what number the room is. And then as she's going up there, she sees Charlotte and Isabel leaving the room. And that's where she finds Charlotte finally. And then the issue ends pretty much. But Isabel's like, don't talk to her. She works for my dad. It's a big thing. So yeah, that's the end of issue 2. And yeah, we finally see Dex catching, or not catching, but, finding.
Catching up with.
Yeah, Charlotte. And Isabel has been hiding her.
We're going to call Charlotte Carlos.
I was going to. Shut
Everybody's
up.
Carlos now.
Everybody's Carlos. Everybody is named Carlos.
Carlos.
Yeah. I don't know. My brain is stupid right now. So, but anyway, yeah. So that's the big reveal at the end of that issue is, okay, she found her. Now what's going to happen? So we started issue 3. Now, this is the first time I noticed like the coloring either seemed different. And it's colored by a different person for these next 2 issues. And that's why I was like, wait a second. Like, it just has a totally different feel with different color on it. So that is an interesting, like, change that they would do, right in the middle of a story arc.
Yeah. Now that you pointed out, like, I do notice it almost is like a tonal shift.
Yeah. I noticed it immediately. I was like, wow, that's completely different. But yeah, anyway, so they kind of have an argument where Isabel's saying like, don't listen to her. Don't, go with her. She's working for my dad. Don't trust her. And Charlotte doesn't know who to go with. And then Isabel like knocks her on the back of the neck, knocks Dex on the back of the head, which stops the whole argument with a gun.
Like a vase or
no, it's a gun
butt.
Gun. Yeah. Gun butt.
Okay. Pistol
whips her. Yes, exactly. Now later on, we find out that the reason why she probably did that was because the gun doesn't have any bullets. So, it's a very useless gun other than hitting you in the back of the head with the gun butt. So, and it does knock Dex down, but it doesn't really like knock her out. So it gives Isabel and Charlotte time to leave, but she's able to get up, and walk down and get, or not walk down, but get down to the elevator, and take it to the first floor. Then I loved this. This was like a really interesting thing to include. That was like a fun character thing where Dex is like, oh shit, I've probably lost him. And then she realizes because the valet guy comes up to her and says, oh, can I bring your car around, ma'am? And then Dex is like, oh, I bet fucking Isabel, valets her car because she's rich and she's not going to park her own car. So that actually is what happened. She's able to find Isabel and Charlotte waiting to get the valet car and is able to grab the gun from Isabel's hand, take it, and then, she says, okay, come with me. We can talk. Look, we're just going to talk. There's nothing, I'm not trying to take you back to your dad or anything. But unfortunately, when they go back to Dex's car, the two guys that shot her, Dill and Whale, are waiting at her car. And
of course they are.
they have a gun and it is loaded. So they point it at the girls and say, give me Charlotte or give us Charlotte. And we don't know who these guys are working for, right? Because obviously Hector has hired Dex and Charlotte's grandma has hired Dex. So who the fuck are these two guys? Like, who are they working for?
Yeah, and I think the Dex is kind of assuming that they don't work for Hector because they're kind of like, I don't know, they're kind of like gruff and not, I don't know, they definitely
They're
don't
not the
look
kind
like
of guys he would work.
Yeah.
He would hire. Is
Yeah.
kind of what she says, right?
Yeah.
But she is able to, I guess, get the jump on them for like a second. She's able to knock the gun out of one of their hands. And I guess they only have one gun, so she knocks the gun out. And then she points the gun that she doesn't know is empty yet at Whale, who dropped the gun. And then I loved this part. This is like one of my favorite parts. This is like a clever little writing thing, kind of like the valet thing. But she says like, okay, girls, get in the car. And then she's talking to the guys. She's talking to Dill and saying, all right, now you guys better stop following us or else. And then she pulls the trigger to fire at their tires so that they don't follow her. And it just says click, click, click. And she's like, oh, shit. And then as she's about to jump back into her car, Isabel and Charlotte just drive off in Dex's car. So like instead of waiting for her, because why would they? They don't trust her. They just take her Mustang and drive off and leave Dex with the two guys that already tried to kill her. And now they have a gun. And so Dex quickly just throws the empty gun at Whale, who picked up his gun, and hits him in the face long enough for her to run away. And she books it and is able to go back to the hotel where Isabel, her car was being brought up because she, obviously they ran away before the car was brought to her. So she jumps in to the Porsche that Isabel has and drives off with Isabel's Porsche, which I thought was a great little ad too.
Yeah.
What'd you think about? Did you think that was clever? Like the whole they drive off in her car?
Very much so. Yeah, I like that. Like I didn't expect those guys to be there, and it's like, oh great. But then yeah, them like being like, fuck you, we're taking your car, we're getting out of here. It's like, oh god damn it. And like I think that one of the guys says like, God, you really do have like the worst luck.
Yes.
And then but then she's like, oh wait, her car's still here because she was pulling it. They were waiting for a valet. So yeah, so she runs up and able to grab her car. That was pretty good.
Yeah. So now she's all beat up, right? She's got punched a couple times. She's got thrown to the ground. She's all bruised. She got hit in the back of the head. And the back of the head hit was like, it definitely made her bleed. It definitely cut a gash in her head. So she gets home. She gets some frozen peas. She lays on the bed. We do see, or the couch, I guess. And we do see that the guy who was watching her brother is still there. She gives him a kiss. He's like, just let me know if you need anything. You know where I am. Like, super simp, like trying to just get any attention and affection from her that he can. Yeah, he's pretty pathetic. And I wonder if he comes up later on, like in the later volumes of this.
Maybe.
Because he seems like a character that could either be spurned and maybe get like shitty, or he just always is like that, and maybe there's a relationship that happens later, or maybe not. I don't know. But it just seems like he's throwing out breadcrumbs that he could pick up later, with a lot of these things. Obviously, her brother, the guy who was watching him, or watching her brother, and then just her relationship with the police, the thing with sleeping with the husband's wife, things like that. The writer is throwing out breadcrumbs seemingly to, be able to go places later on and for future volumes. So, and that's always a good idea, right? That's like kind of also makes the lore of the comic a little bit bigger, right? Because you're throwing out things that are mysterious for the reader to think about.
Yeah, you're hoping you can expand on that later if you get it going. So
yeah. So she's sleeping on the couch. Dex gets woken up by a phone call. And it's Isabel saying, "Where the fuck is my Porsche, you bitch? You stole my Porsche." So, which doesn't make any sense because, they stole her Mustang. So fuck them.
Stole my car first.
Yeah. So she calls Isabel and says, okay, let's meet up. I'm not working for your dad. Let's meet up in a park. I promise no one will be there. It'll be fine. So this is kind of where I think we get some answers, because Dex says, like, I will give you your Porsche if you tell me what I want to know. And so I don't remember, what exactly does she find out here? I can't remember exactly.
So this is where we find out that part of the reason that Charlotte is running and hiding is because Charlotte was dating her brother, Oscar. And Oscar was actually, and she is an anthropology
Major.
And so she has access to some Native American dig sites, I guess, that are part of the local area, because of the local tribe.
Right. And she's part of that tribe too.
Yeah. And so he was using their relationship to steal artifacts and sell them for a crap ton of money, because you're not, that's supposed to be preserved and then museum or given back to tribe like that, and he's like, oh no, I'm going to sell this stuff under her nose. And she didn't realize it for a long time. And then once she realized what he was doing, I guess she started documenting it. And that way, she would have like some kind of
right. But we don't know that yet. We don't know about the documentation from this, right? We just know that they dated and that he's kind of a fuck up, right? Like the dad has been trying to make him like suitable to take over the business, but Oscar has not proven himself worthy. And that's why he keeps trying to do these kind of schemes. But then he always ends up having to get bailed out because they always fail. And that just means that he keeps failing, right? So he just wants to impress his dad, basically, is what we learned from that. And then also I think there's like the reveal that that's not the only reason why Oscar left her or broke up with her. There is a little bit of an insinuation here where like they talk, like I think Isabel and Charlotte had a thing.
Yes, I think there's a little bit of that too. It's like, Oscar like tried to seduce her, but I think that like she was already kind of into Isabel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that wasn't really like, that was also kind of part of the reason I guess that they split up.
Right. They split up. Yeah. I guess she wasn't that into him. Maybe she realized that too late or something, but how do you break up with the gang leader of an MS-13's son? That's kind of hard. So
yeah,
it's kind of almost a forever thing, only because it's so dangerous. But by the end of it, I guess Isabel says like, fine. Like I believe that you're not trying to kill Charlotte or give her to my dad. So Dex is like, well, where is she? And finally, Isabel gives it up that she's in a cabin up in the mountains. So they drive to the cabin. And as they're driving there, before they get there, someone shows up to the cabin. And Charlotte's like, oh, is that you, Isabel? And unfortunately, it's not. This is Carlos. I mean, it's Oscar, right? Or is it not Oscar? Is it just it might just be the dad's henchman guy.
I think it's just the dad's henchman guy. Yeah.
Okay. So he picks her up, takes her out of the house. But there's one thing that I didn't really pick up on that was important, that she leaves her computer open. She was on her computer earlier when someone came in the house, and she didn't close the lid. So I guess technically it's not asleep, which means you don't have to put the password in unless you had a screensaver on. And it's just sitting there on the couch. So that comes into play later. So that's the end of issue 3. And then we start issue 4 with Dex and Isabel driving to the cabin. And they're like, when are we going to get here? They don't like each other, obviously. They talk about like how, oh, you punched me, you did this, you did that. But then when they get there, they realize, oh shit, the door's open. Someone has taken Charlotte. And of course, Isabel's like, it's all your fucking fault. And then as they're yelling at each other, Dex is like, shut the fuck up. Do you hear that? And there's a car coming up the driveway. And it turns out this is Oscar. And it's Oscar with the two guys. I'm sorry.
No, it is Oscar.
It is Oscar. Now you're
You got me.
John, you're messing me up. I had it right, and you're confusing me more. Yeah, so it's Oscar, and then the two guys that have been following her, Whale and Dill, turns out they're hired by him. That's who's been hiring them, and obviously they don't give a fuck about killing her, right? Because they already shot her, tried to kill her in the first issue, in the first 2 pages, right? So
Yeah.
Isabel comes out and says, like, what the fuck do you want? They have a big exchange. And then Oscar goes to talk to Dex, who's very smug, and he punches her in the face. And then they basically begin tossing the apartment or the cabin. So, because they're like, where is it? Where is it? And we don't know what he's talking about. We've not heard anything yet about documents or anything he needs or is looking for. But it turns out he's been looking for something that Charlotte stole or had on him, and their documents. So he begins tossing the apartment with Dill and Whale, and they look in her suitcase. They find some papers. They're like, sweet, these are the originals. We're good. Let's get the fuck out of here. So they take those. And of course, this was a scene I liked too. So I think Oscar's like, Dill, take care of her. And Dex is like, all right, I'm just going to try this. And she just like 1-2 punches Dill in the face and then hits him in the stomach. And then Dill doesn't move at all. And she's like, well, I had to try. And he's like, I understand. And then and then punches her super hard in the stomach and leaves her there with the wind knocked out of her, and takes the documents with him. But while she's on the floor, she pulls herself up. She realizes, oh shit, the computer's just sitting right here. And I guess it's closed now. I don't know if they closed it when they were there earlier, but either way, it's not password locked. So she's smiling because she's able to get into the computer. And of course, someone like Charlotte, who keeps extenuous notes because she's an anthropologist, definitely has stuff on her computer, probably backups of whatever she had on Oscar. So Oscar goes back to his dad's house, where Isabel is now too, and he goes to he's going there to show his dad, look, everything's taken care of, because this is why, like, basically we find out the whole story, like the web of, the crime mystery is Charlotte had information that Oscar was stealing the dig site, findings and selling them. So she had that over him. She wasn't going to blackmail him, from what I understand, right? She wasn't going to?
No, it didn't seem like it, but she just wanted to be left alone. And,
Yeah, and he's like, we can't have anything like that on me. Like, I don't want to have that over my head. So, so he thinks, okay, this is all I needed to do was get these documents, and now it's good, and maybe just kill her, right? Because then no one will know that I did this. So he brought that to his dad to be like, hey, this is what happened. And so the dad was like, okay, we need to clean this up. Yeah, God damn it, again.
Well, yeah, and he's like, yeah, I cannot believe you, Oscar. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, so that's why he hired Dex to find, or to call him first when he found Charlotte instead of her grandma. And so it's all kind of full circle of who's hiring who and why and all that stuff. And then this is where we also learn, we don't really get confirmation that Isabel was gay, other than her dad saying, I thought, like, how would your grandma look down on you? Like, my son is a fuck up and my daughter's a deviant. So that's where we get like, oh, maybe Charlotte and her had some kind of relationship that was sexual, so she's gay, or at least some kind of queer, and that's why the dad is like, oh, I don't like my daughter either because of that. Other than, besides, she's a girl, like that's also in there too. She's a woman, so she's not worth the same as Oscar, who's a fuck up. But so he shreds the documents that Oscar brings him, and he's like, good, whew, that was close. I'm glad we figured that out. And then right when that happens, we get a phone call, and it's Des, and she's calling the dad because she had his number because he gave it to her to say, like, call me when you find Charlotte. So she's talking to him, and she says, hey, dumb fucks, guess what? I have the computer that has all those documents backed up on it. So like, if you want, any closure on this, you're going to have to give me Charlotte because the dad has Charlotte, right? So, and I want to bring her back to the grandma, obviously. And the dad's like, well, why don't you come to my house? And she's like, what do you think? I'm fucking stupid? Like, I'm not just going to drive to your house and get killed. So they set up a meeting. And when they get to the meeting, it's like at a bar. So it's just between the dad and Dex. And I thought this was kind of clever because obviously Dex knows that they're going to search her car and for the computer because she's not going to bring it into the bar. So while the dad's talking to her, he's got his goons like searching the car. And then they find the computer and then they tell him like over like an earpiece, we've got it, boss. Like fuck her or whatever. You can kill her now. And she's like, and he's like, ha ha, we've got the computer. And she's like, do you think I'm stupid? I've got like 3 copies of this, one in a safety deposit box, one with a police detective, and she's going to open it if I die and find out everything. And then another that's, somewhere else that I won't tell you. So like she has all these backups in case she does die. And so he's like, all right, fine. You kind of got me. So let's meet on this beach in the middle of nowhere and I'll give you Charlotte. And she's like, well, how do I know you're not going to kill me? And he's like, well, you got to trust me too. So they meet on this beach and Dex gets there. We see Charlotte is there. So she's alive. But
this was one of the,
okay.
I just want to say like, this is where the art there. So the beach is like completely dark. And then you see everybody's shadows in there, like different shades of like dark blues and grays. Then this is the art and coloring in this part was definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, this part was cool.
Yeah, and then so she gets there and they're like, okay, stop. Like, like this is here, Charlotte, like we're doing this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. And then Carlos says, all right, Charlotte's back with you, but I can't let either of you live because you both know, right? You know the secret that I don't want held over my head. So he's got a gun. He's pointing it at them. And the dad's like, just fucking leave it. And then also he's saying, well, how do we know you're not going to like turn on me and my son? And she's like, well, I mean, I kept my word. I never said I wouldn't have leverage, like just in case you fucking try to kill me, but I'm not telling anybody about it. Right. I'm not bringing this to the police, which she could do. So, they're kind of going back and forth and the dad and her like, okay, they come to an agreement, but Oscar is not okay with this. He's like, no, fuck it. Dad, I'll show you. It'll be fine. I can't live with this over my head. I can fix this. And he's got the gun pointed at Dex, and he's getting more and more agitated. He keeps saying, I'm going to fix this. I've got it. And then right when he's like, I'm not going to let you make a fool of me and Isabel, not this time. Watch me, Papa. I can fix this. And then we hear a crack, like a gunshot, but Dex isn't shot. We see that Hector has actually shot his own son. But he doesn't kill him. That's one thing I noticed. He just shot him in the arm. I guess so that he'll drop the gun. And Oscar is like, Papa, like how could you? And Hector's like, just take the girl and go, Dex. So she gets Charlotte. They leave. Mission success, right? And then, so she brings Charlotte back to the mom or the grandma. Everything's good, and it's over now. I guess she's square with the casino. And the next day, Dex goes to talk to I think this is the police woman, right? This is supposed to be Tracy?
Yeah, this is Tracy.
Okay, she looks different than she did. I don't know if it's the coloring. I guess the coloring because her hair was lighter in the first couple issues, but and this is that new colorist. So, but yeah, I guess Dex gave her like a FedEx box that had all the documents in it and said like, don't open unless I'm dead. So like she doesn't know what's in it. Tracy doesn't, but she gives it to Dex and says, well, hopefully, you got everything figured out and watch your back. And I thought this was interesting. I'm like, if this was me, I would not throw this FedEx box in the trash can.
Yeah. I was surprised she just threw it in the trash.
Yeah. I would just have this copy just in case, who knows, but yeah, she just like walks away, throws the box of evidence. This made me think that maybe there wasn't anything in it. Maybe it was just like a, fake, like a bunch of blank papers in the box or some shit,
oh yeah, maybe she didn't act, maybe she bluffed all of that and didn't make any copies of it.
Right. Yeah. Maybe there was nothing on the computer. They don't say.
That would be pretty good. I think that would be funny if it came out later, like like the end page was like, hours earlier, and it just shows the computer, and it's like dot dot dot.
Hard drive
like
corrupted. Like, yeah. Yeah, that would have been funny, but they don't show that. But she throws it away so nonchalantly that I'm like, was this a real thing? Because I wouldn't do that if I had extreme evidence on the MS-13 gang member's son. I wouldn't just throw it in the trash for anybody to possibly find. So, but yeah, that's the end of the first volume of Stumptown. John, what did you think? What would you give it?
I really liked it. Like you said, she was a complex character, but she didn't. But she kept a lot to the chest. She was a really good, although horrible luck, but a good PI.
Yeah,
and I like the story. Like it kind of seems like it's going to be a by the numbers, but it has several little twists that I really enjoyed. I didn't see the dad shooting the. I know I get it that he was like, he's just a fuck up, because I know he said I think he sent him to be a lawyer and a business school, and he flunked out of both of those.
Out schools. Of both, yeah.
But still, I just didn't expect him to shoot his own son. So.
I did, but by that the page right before you hear the crack, I was like, oh, he's freaking out too much. Like the dad's gonna have to. I thought he was gonna kill him. I thought he was gonna blow his head off or some shit. But
I thought maybe the sister was gonna.
Oh yeah, that could do it. Yeah,
I didn't expect the dad to do it. So yeah, I was like, oh yeah, he is the boss, because he shot his own son.
Yeah,
it's like, nah, we're not doing this. So but yeah, I mean overall, the story was really good. The first issue was like a good hook to get you in. It got fleshed out pretty well, and then I think it was a good conclusion to this story. But to be like, I would check out more adventures of Dex. Like she's an interesting character, and she plays it rough and ready, and I liked it. It was good.
Yeah. Well, what would you give it then?
Oh, what was her actual name? Because
her actual name is Dexedrine.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds like a drug, but I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was another name for meth or something like that.
Okay, cool. I didn't. Yeah,
I don't know if that's true or not. No, but I don't know.
Okay, but either way, I thought that there was something a little more there to her name, but it was fun. But yeah, like you said, I enjoyed it. I like the art. I guess I saw the coloring once you pointed it out, but for the most part, I think especially because the coloring when it was night in the second half was still really good as well.
Right.
So I don't think it really threw me, even on this walkthrough. So I really enjoyed it, especially like I said, the night stuff. So I'm going to give this one a solid 8. It was a good good read, and I would definitely read more.
That's a high grade. I don't know. For some reason, I thought you were going to be like 6.5. Cool. Yeah. So I'm going to get, this one's going to have an asterisk with me, right? Because I think if you're not into crime stuff, you might not give a fuck about this, right? Like it might not be up your alley at all. But if you're into crime stuff, I thought this was pretty strong. Because I'm coming at it like that because when I first read this, when it came out issue 1 and I bought it in 2009, I didn't like it, or I just didn't care, right? I was like, oh, that's okay, whatever. But now that I'm into crime comics more, like a lot, and crime novels and stuff, I enjoyed this a lot. And I thought there was a lot of interesting, kind of clever things that happened that he writes in. I thought that were just unexpected to me. So I think it was really good in that sense. So yeah, I would give it like a 7.5 if you're into crime comics and you like that genre. I would give it like a 6 if you're like, it is above, and I'll give it a 6.5 if you're like into books, into comics, but you're not really into the genre. It might not hit right for you, but it is still a good comic. Like it's still above average for sure. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 6.5, but with an asterisk if you like crime comics, 7.5. So, but I definitely am. I'm like, I want to go buy all the volumes of this because I like crime comics. So
nice. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. And like I said, I would read more. We could definitely do another one if that's something y'all like, if y'all enjoyed it and you want us to do another one, let us know. Cause I definitely would be down with it. If not, maybe I'll just pick it up on my own, but yeah, it was good stuff.
Cool. Well, with that, John, well, I know we got coming up in, for the first episode of July, we got Ultimate Spider-Man. That's going to be our book that we pick. And then we'll have a poll for July. We're thinking about doing some kind of Shark Week theme or something, but there's not a lot of shark books. So we're going to have to do some research and see if we can find some.
That's true. We read
the
two of the biggest ones.
And two of the biggest ones were the two same character, just different times of it, right? There was Hookjaw from 2010 or whatever, and Hookjaw from the 70s. So was there another one we did? I don't even remember.
No, I think those are the main two.
There is one. You know what? There is one we might be able to do. We'll talk about it later. We'll see if we can find 3 more to have people vote on or something. But yeah, that'll be like an interesting topic if we can find more shark books. If there's not, there should be more shark books. Come on, it's fun.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah,
and I know everybody appreciates my ridiculous themes. So
yes, and if we are doing, and we're gonna do for the exclusive Patreon podcast this month, we're going to do a manga that we've been kind of holding off on for a bit. We've been wanting to read it, but we're going to do the first volume of Vinland Saga. So that'll be this month for the Patreon. And if you would like to sign up for Patreon, and you can go to patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And you can sign up for either the regular tier or there's a Hellblazer tier and stuff, which you get the extra Hellblazer podcast every week for that.
Which you guys should check out because it's pretty good. If you like the Swamp Thing, Matt's doing the solo on Constantine Hellblazer as well. And they line up for the first, how many is it again?
A while. They are congruent for, I'd say, the first 40 issues of Hellblazer. So, yeah. And I kind of reference them every now and then. So if you were like, oh, where does this start? If you're listening to Swamp Thing, you can definitely pick out where they start with each other. What were we going to say?
I was like, so that's just some fun stuff. And especially, with the new DCU getting into that, if that's a character that you're interested in, that's definitely a way that Matt's doing every single issue. So
yes,
it's definitely a way to get into the character.
Plus some extras I've found, in the reading order, I've like, oh, there's this special or there's this, random issue of something that Vertigo put out that has an in-continuity Hellblazer story. So I'm finding the little, special things too and throwing them in there so you don't miss any Constantine.
No other podcast is doing this. I promise you that.
No, they're not.
So I would definitely check it out. If you can, sign up for Patreon. We definitely appreciate it. If not, we have all of our other social media out there. We've got Instagram, Twitter, YouTube for exclusive content as well. Definitely check it out.
Yes.
And we should thank our patrons.
Yes. I'd like to thank Hoku, Otaku Mike, Christian, Matthew, Kyla, and Sandy. You guys are awesome. You are our favorite people in the world because you support us.
That's right.
And I'm getting good feedback. Every now and then one of them will comment on the Hellblazer podcast, show me like, oh, this is the song that John was mentioning, or, here's an interesting fact you might not have known about travelers in America. Cause I talk about like, oh, there's travelers in England, but I didn't know there was travelers in America, and they dropped some knowledge. So that's kind of cool. And yeah, so if you have any interest in that, once again, sign up at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books. And unless there's anything else, I think we're good to go.
Yeah, I think we'll see him on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.